they think Euro people are amazing, they can do no wrong, they're these perfect, wonderful creatures. They tend to kind of almost worship, Anglo or Euro people. So all
So
those,
hold on. One, don't just hold your, I just want to say this.
yep,
And she ran into some troublesome experiences by doing that. You
horrifying
know,
experiences, okay? And
Hor- horrible.
I want to add real quick. So one thing
Yeah.
that really annoys me is 95% of the YouTube videos or commercials you see about teaching abroad are typically showing a European Anglo person, right? So their experiences are always glowing and wonderful, and it's so great, it's so amazing. The people here are amazing. Two, um, you have to take in consideration that a lot of developing countries, because they only see the positive image of Euro looking people, they think Euro people are amazing, they can do no wrong, they're these perfect, wonderful creatures. So they tend to kind of almost worship, Anglo or Euro people. So all
So
those
hold on. One, don't just hold your, I just want to say this. You guys, sorry to cut you off, teacher Test. Now we're going to talk about, you guys, the negative aspect or the potentially negative things that you can run into by teaching and living abroad. All right, especially in Southeast Asia or certain in East Asia as well, Latin America potentially, even Africa. So you heard the positive things that can happen when you move abroad, the experiences. Now we're going to get into some of the things, because remember, Anton's class is about health and wellness, and your mental health is very important. A lot of times people negate the impact of mental health. All right. So
yes,
we're going to
yes.
talk about some of the mental health aspects of living in Southeast Asia. So sorry, teacher Tess, go ahead and continue with that
Please
with you.
interrupt me. I talk a lot. So what I was going to say is
Good.
that when I was watching all these interviews and all these people saying how great it was teaching in Southeast Asia, I really didn't take in consideration that most of them were Anglo. And because a lot of developing countries praise and think Anglo people are perfect, their opinions weren't going to paint what I was going to go through. Because an Anglo person isn't going to suffer colorism, negative stereotypes, because there's mostly positive stereotypes. And another thing that I realized is that when I came back from Southeast Asia and I had that some bad experiences, I started like doing a deep dive on YouTube, and I found tons of videos by Asian American, Afro American, Afro Euro Americans who had similar experiences to me. And what I realized is those videos were suppressed either by the country paying Google not to show those videos or this, that, and the third. So that information wasn't readily available. I had to go out of my way to find videos that talked about colorism and oppression and prejudices of those countries. And you have to take in consideration because teaching English abroad, Vietnam and Thailand, that's a huge moneymaker for the country. So they don't want to have a negative impact. And no country, because prejudices and racism is considered inherently wrong by most cultures, a lot of them are saving face and pretending that those issues don't exist, but they absolutely do. So a lot of those videos and that information is suppressed. But I did reach out and meet a lot of people who had. And another thing is that people are meant to feel really ashamed of having a bad experience and think it's their fault and don't realize that it's actually a
Yes.
symptom of racism. And it took me years. It's been 5 years since that experience for me to realize that a lot of the things I was going through was based on racism and that it wasn't actually that I was a bad teacher, I was a bad person. I mean, sure, I'm not perfect and wasn't amazing, but I'll share it, and we'll do another video where I'll talk about where I would do the exact same lesson as my peer who was Anglo, and I would get yelled at and I got cussed out by my supervisor in front of, like, he said swear words, F word, B word, call me a little girl, just really verbally abusive. And he was a from Scotland, not Scotland, but he was Welsh or something. And that was completely accepted. Whereas my Euro counterparts who did the same thing I did, like literally, we did the same exact lesson plan, didn't get that treatment. And I think that a lot of those videos are suppressed. That information is suppressed. two, people are made to feel so ashamed of their bad experiences that they don't want to talk about it. It's been 5 years and I'm finally ready to talk about it. And, three, English teaching is a huge moneymaker. So a lot of countries are going to kind of hide that they have issues. Like, for example, a lot of Chinese companies will ask for a picture. And obviously, if you're browner looking, they'll just never talk to you again. So you can get jobs abroad, but just as colorism is a huge issue in the United States, colorism is not exactly the same in other countries, but it's there. All over the
Got you.
world, Afro people are seen as savage, less than, uneducated, animalistics, you know, what's the word, like mischievous or
Yeah.
loose. So when I left because I wanted to escape the racism I was experiencing here. And what I learned is the world at large does not have a positive opinion of Afro people. They want to emulate everything we have, our dancing, our singing, our passion, but they hate us. So it's like they love to hate us, right? So what I learned was there was no escape from racism. There's no country I'll ever live in where my brownness isn't going to be first. But what I did learn over time was it wasn't about being accepted by the large group. It was about being accepted by the few. And in each country I lived in, I made lifelong friendships that I still have to this day with people who I love and adore. And they did save my life. There were things that went down in those countries that were soul crushing. And it was more of like the country itself, the people are kinder and more community oriented. But working in English schools, you're dealing with an oppressive system, right? Because learning English in itself is a form of oppression because it's basically Eng- English speakers are the ones that have all the money, so everybody wants to learn the language. So typically, the people who run the schools are Euro or Anglo, so they're coming with their own dislike of Afro people. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's not that the
Yeah.
countries are so prejudice as much as the institution of teaching English as a second language in the first place is somewhat of an oppressive thing. And there are other videos that do a far better job of explaining this than I'm going to do, but that is it in a nutshell.
Perfect. So yeah, thank you very much for talking about that and touching on that. Anybody watching this who has had similar experiences, comment below. If you've had different experiences, comment below. Of course, experience, if you're watching this, does not invalidate your experience or my, and our experience doesn't invalidate your experience. This is her personal experience. And of course, I share my personal experience. You can share your personal experience. Just do it in a respectful way and don't do it to try to invalidate any of her experiences. All right, you guys, because I've had some of that happen on some of my previous videos. Okay, as teacher Tess knows as well. And another thing, any teachers, any schools out there looking for English speaking teachers, teacher Tess and I are both speaking American Standard English. Yes, and hire people of color to teach at your schools. Anglo people are not the only people who speak American Standard English. So get ahead of the curve. You guys, if you're watching this in China, from Japan, looking to hire English teachers, hire people of color as well. We deserve the same pay. We deserve the same standards. We deserve the same respect. And yes, we teach and speak American Standard English just as well, if not better, than our non-people of color counterparts. Go ahead, Teacher Tess. You were raising your hand.
Yeah, and that was another thing that I ran into when I was teaching in Southeast Asia is they would hire people who were ethnic, I would say ethnically Welsh, so or from East London, and they had a really thick Cockney accent, which is extremely hard to understand. It's not standard English. So in England, or I should say in Europe, there's what's called the Queen's English, and that's considered the most standard, the most eloquent English, right? In America, it's the West Coast accent, which is what Anton and I have, which is what Hollywood shows. So
Yes.
Hollywood people typically have what's called the West Coast accent, and in the UK, the Queen's English, which is the standard English, is considered the best accent. Well, people in Southeast Asia are so obsessed with blue eyes and blonde hair, they would hire teachers that had these Cockney or really accents that were extremely hard and garbled to understand and weren't standard. Um, that the students would learn English and then not be understood by people because they're learning this really like bizarre regional accent, not like a an accent that's national. But unfortunately, because of the negative propaganda coming out of the United States and the UK about brown people, and then Southeast Asia has their own negative propaganda about brown people, unfortunately, they're doing a disservice to a lot of these kids because they're hiring people who aren't very well educated, who aren't actually teachers. Like, I actually teach in the United States, whereas a lot of the teachers they would hire, they had blonde hair, blue eyes, but they weren't teachers in their country. They had really
Mm.
regional accents that were hard to understand. And a lot of them are men who are there for adult tango tourism, if you catch my drift. So they're not even there for the right
Oh,
reasons. But unfortunately, that's what racism does. Instead of basing your opinion on the content of that person's character and their actual education and actually paying attention to the way they talk, you're basing everything on, oh, they have blonde hair and blue eyes or they're fitting a aesthetic. And unfortunately, your children are not getting the best education and you're putting them in harm's ways because a lot of these men are just there for adult tango tourism. And what if they get young ladies and boys pregnant, or not boys, you know what I mean? And then they just take off, and then you've got this young person with a baby they can't take care of. And I actually had students that happened to. There was a girl I knew who thought that American men were so wonderful and better than, and they had better morals, and she got pregnant, and he ghosted her, and she couldn't have the baby because clearly the baby wasn't going to look like the people and everyone would know what she did. And this Southeast Asia is very conservative when it comes to adult tangoing. You know, you're supposed to wait till marriage. So she had to go and have a procedure done and did not finish her pregnancy. And she went through a deep, dark depression, and they don't really have counseling there. In fact, the nurses treated her like a bad woman or a loose woman and called her bad things. And, you know, that happens a lot in Southeast Asia because of the tango adult tourism, that women are just left in these really awful situations. And it bothers me that the government isn't doing something about that, okay? They should be more careful about the type of people they hire. If you've never taught in your own
absolutely.
country, you shouldn't come to another country and teach. If your degree is in like mechanical engineering and you're a 21-year-old blonde, blue-eyed guy with a Cockney accent, I'm sorry, but that's not a good recipe for teaching. Not that people from different backgrounds aren't good teachers, because I don't think that. My background is anthropology, sociology, but I came to Southeast Asia with already 5 years of teaching experience.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a very good point. So people looking, especially a lot of the people in the Anton's class community are brothers and sisters from the States or wherever, Afro Latinos, Afro descended people. And so if you're considering going to teach or live abroad in Southeast Asia, these are things that you should definitely consider. Okay. Because colorism and racism are definitely things. Of course, we know we're pronouncing it racism. That's for a reason. It's because of the YouTube algorithm. But anyways, you guys probably already know that. So yes, if you're going to teach in Southeast Asia, and I would say East Asia in general, because I've heard the same happens in Korea as well and
Well, I
China.
would never go to
So
Korea. Korea is, from what I've read and heard, is like 25,000 times worse than, I would
right.
say the worst is Korea, right? The second worst is Thailand, right? And then Vietnam. Vietnam
Then China,
actually, oh, well, I don't know where China would be in that, but all I know is Vietnam, as a person of color, Vietnam is your best bet. I wouldn't recommend Thailand. I would not recommend China. I would not recommend
Korea.
Thailand or Korea. If you're a person of color, first of all, Vietnam pays the best. I made $25 to $30 an hour. There is colorism within Vietnam, though. I mean, I did have some Vietnamese people tell me the only reason they were willing to hire me is because I'm fair. I'm even fair in their standards because Vietnamese people can be dark, 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 right? So I would say again, my experience as a black woman is as a biracial or a triracial woman, and I'm a fair-skinned woman. So I'm gonna say that you can't take my experience and say that you're gonna experience the same things, because I did see other people that were black but they were dark skinned and they got treated differently than I did. They got paid less. They were even more under a microscope than I was. So again, if you're gonna go, you need to like there are some YouTubers that are dark skinned, right? You know what? I'm gonna say rich skinned, who will talk about their experiences, and they're different than mine. You know what I mean? So yeah, I would, my recommendation is if you are a Afro descendant or person, go to Vietnam. That's probably your safest bet, and go to a main city. Vietnamese people are unique in the sense that they, because of the Vietnam War and they were conquered by the French and brutalized by the French, they don't have a positive opinion of Euro people. They actually kind of have a thorn in their side about Euro people. Between the
Yeah, of
French
course, you're
and the
right. And it's
Vietnam War, Vietnamese people, especially Vietnamese men, they have a thorn on their side about Euro people and American people, white American people. So, as a person of
yes, yes.
color, and Vietnamese people are very up to date about, they're up to date about the political issues of brown people in America. So Vietnamese people, I would say, are your best bet. It's still colorist there. There's still issues. There's still some people who don't like Afro people, but that's, I would start in Vietnam in a main city and branch out from there. I wouldn't go to
Yeah,
Korea. I wouldn't go to China, especially not if a man, and I would not go to Thailand. I mean, Thailand's okay. It's like más o menos. It's like so-so. You know what I mean? Like you can find work in the main cities, but I don't know. I think if you want to travel, you should have the best experiences. And the best experiences, in my opinion, would be Vietnam.
thank you. Yes, this is her opinion, you
Love you,
guys.
my
This is her
Vietnamese
opinion. You
peoples.
might have
What?
yes, and I've heard the same about Vietnam as well, and a lot of it also is because of their socialist ideologies, and socialism tends to be very anti-racist, and so it makes sense. It actually very much aligns what you're telling me about your experiences in Vietnam. All right. Speaking of Vietnam, I would love to recommend a channel. Her name's Luna Oi. She's from Vietnam, and she has a lot of fantastic commentary. All right, like the perspective of being in Vietnam with the Viet War, the war between the U.S. and Vietnam. Anyways, moving on. Did you want to say something else about that?
Oh, I was just like, why didn't you tell me about this person?
I'm going to tell you about her, teacher Tess. She's fantastic. Luna Oi. I absolutely adore
Send it
her
to
and
me,
her
and you
channel.
can you can call me Tess.
Tess. Yeah, I know. I'm so used to saying so accustomed to saying teacher Tess for the okay. So you guys, we're going to take a really quick break. I just need to stretch. As you can see, I'm sitting with my legs crossed. And so I'm going to take just a quick stretch real quick. Okay. Teacher Tess, are you going to take a break or are you going to sit here and chat?
We'll chat. Will you
Okay.
take your
I'll be
break?
right back.
Audience members of Anton's class, please put any questions you have, anything you want me to elaborate on, so we can make more videos about this experience. Again, I'm going to continue to repeat. I lived in Vietnam for about a year. I lived in Thailand for about a year. So my experience is not that of someone who's been there for 5 years. So my experience is particularly limited. You know what I'm saying? And it's based on what I was going through. So don't take what I have to say and be like, oh, teacher Tess, you're crazy. Like, you know what you're talking about. Those were my experiences. And again, I'm a light-skinned woman, so and I was particularly young at the time, and I also have a really round, fat face, so I tend to be mistaken for being youngish. So my experiences are going to be based on how people perceive of me, right? And also, I would say that depends on your constitution as a person. I'm a very sensitive person, so dealing with colorism was really hard on me mentally versus, you know, someone like maybe my dad who had to get a stronger constitution at a younger age because of all of the pig brutality he experienced in the 50s, might have not noticed or cared as much. But overall, I want to say that Thailand, Vietnam, people are very loving and very, very kind, even if they didn't think I could speak English. If I fell in the street, people would stop and help me. You don't experience that in the United States. If I was short, like one time I was at a restaurant and it's a cash society and I didn't have enough money, a woman came up and paid for me and gave me a hug. So whether I was in Thailand or I was Vietnam, outside of work politics, people were very, very loving and kind towards me. Even though people would tell me, oh, you need to lose weight, I got called fat a lot, or they would tell me, oh, you need to lighten your skin. So when I lived in Thailand, people were my color and darker, but people would tell me to cover up, wear lightening creams, blah, 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 blah. But outside of work, people are super loving. Like, grandmas would walk up to me and like fix my makeup for me and fix my hair and say like, oh, you're beautiful. Oh, you just need to be lighter. Oh, you just need to lose a little bit of weight. So it was, those experiences were like heart lifting. Also, it was easy to make friends compared to the United States. People are a lot more genuine. Thailand people save face a lot, so it takes time to read their body language, but I would say like Vietnamese people are extremely direct and extremely honest, which why I preferred living in Vietnam, because I felt like Vietnamese people were more like Caribbean/South Americans in that they're very vocal and it's very easy for them to tell you what's up. Whereas I would say Thai people are more like English people or whatever. Like they're very much about saving face, smiling. Like they smile even when they're angry. They smile even when they're uncomfortable because that's the culture. All right.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you for keeping our wonderful guests company. And right now I'm going to use this opportunity to show stuff here and stuff here of her wonderful content. Both you can find her Instagram and her YouTube channel. All right. And of course, I'm going to have it all linked below. So yes. So we're going to go ahead and get into another thing, which is talking about